So there are a ton of good ideas out there, but you really want to focus on the amazing ideas. And if you can focus on the amazing ideas, then you can ignore a lot of the good ideas, which then reduces your focus to only the most impactful items. And then that's how you drive impact, and that's how you create something really special rather than just trying to get through a task list.
Hey everybody, Tanner here with WAGMI Ventures. On today's episode, we have Michael Sanders, Co-Founder and Chief Storyteller at Horizon. For anyone who's new, this is the WAGMI Ventures podcast, where we do snapshots with interesting founders from across Web3. Check out wagmiventures.io to learn more about the syndicate behind the podcast. But for now, let's get into it with Michael from Horizon. All right. Hey, everybody. I'm here with Michael Sanders, co-founder and chief storyteller at Horizon. Michael, how's it going today?
I'm doing really well, Tanner. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for taking the time. I'm really excited to chat. I know we have a lot to talk about.
Yeah, me too, man. Thanks for having me.
Definitely. So maybe to start, let's just jump in. I think it would be great if people could learn a little bit more about your story. From what I've read online, it looks like you've had a really interesting path and you've done a lot of really cool stuff. And so maybe just what brought you to what you're building with Horizon would be helpful.
Yeah. I first fell in love with crypto via Bitcoin in 2010. And I immediately thought like this decentralized currency would be the future. And then in 2014, I met Vitalik Buterin, the inventor of Ethereum, in a small little place with 20 people in Toronto. And he was talking about smart contracts and decentralized governance and all of these concepts that at the time I sort of understood, but most of what he was saying was technical and flew over my head. But from that day forward, I fell in love with the notion of Web3. I was convinced that Vitalik's from the future and he's here to teach us about technology, economics, and love. And yeah, I really adored this concept of a next generation of the internet where users and creators share in the value of the ecosystems they participate in, this sort of symbiosis that could really evolve the way we interact in terms of business, art, creativity, all sorts of ways. And so from that point forward, I spent a lot of time thinking about, how can we take crypto and Web3 and blockchain from this esoteric concept to enabling people to actually use these technologies and enabling entities around the globe to actually benefit from them. And I honestly didn't have that many great ideas. It wasn't until I met Peter Kieltika, who is our CEO and one of my co-founders, who in the middle of 2017, to my knowledge, was the first person to ever conceptualize Web3 games. And the moment he told me, I thought, holy shit, this is it. This is how we can welcome the world to Web3. And we can do it in a really fun and loving way. So yeah, that was middle of 2017. We founded Horizon shortly thereafter. I guess this month is actually our 5-year anniversary. And it's been an incredible journey ever since.
Amazing. Okay, so what is Horizon?
So our vision at Horizon is to build this new dimension where economies are fun, accessible, and for the benefit of all participants. And to enable that vision, we make Web3 easy, fun, and powerful for users and builders. And we have two main products to do this. So Sequence is an all-in-one Web3 developer platform and smart wallet that makes building Web3 games and applications easy. And then we also have Skyweaver, which is our free-to-play Web3 trading card game. It's an incredible experience and our community is growing. And Skyweaver is powered by Sequence as well. Very
cool. Okay, so I want to take a step back in a second and ask a couple contextual questions. But before that, I think one interesting place to start would be maybe talking through this line from your website where it says Horizon is providing developers with the tools to build the next generation of internet economies and experiences where both users and creators share in the value generated by the networks they participate in. And you kind of referenced this already, but I feel like there's a lot to unpack there in terms of maybe assumptions or contextual knowledge for someone unfamiliar with the possibilities of blockchain gaming. So for example, like, are users and creators not historically sharing in the value created by the networks they participate in, et cetera, et cetera. So could you unpack that idea for us a little bit more?
Yeah, of course. In traditional video games, users don't actually own their game items, whether they've purchased the items or they've won them. They're just in a centralized database that, exists in that ecosystem and can really disappear at any moment if the game were to shut down. And furthermore, players don't really have the opportunity to trade in any sort of easy manner. They can kind of do it in gray markets. But yeah, you don't own the items. Whereas what Web3 enables is, because of its neutral infrastructure, it allows for decentralized ownership, meaning that you as a gamer, your game items, you truly own them. They're secured on the blockchain. You access them with your wallet and no one can take them away from you, which means you can use them in any manner you wish. You can trade them. There's obviously that resaleability. So, you can buy something and sell it later. And you just have a lot more freedom around it. And this applies to not just games, but it applies to all sorts of Web3 applications, whether you're talking about collectibles or digital real estate or your social identity. Like with social networks, for example, in Web3, you truly own your identity rather than the platform that you're on, which means that you get to dictate how much information you share with the platform, and you can monetize your identity rather than it just be the platform that monetizes your identity. So Web3 is largely about creating a better balance between the value sharing and value creation amongst creators and users. Because up until this point, I would say that it's mostly the platforms that make all of the revenue, despite the fact that in many scenarios, it's the users that are creating, in some scenarios, all the content. And so Web3 creates more symbiotic models and ecosystems in which, those who are creating all the content, such as the users, can actually share in the value that the entire ecosystem is generating. And so what we provide at Horizen are the tools with Sequence as this developer platform. It's a full Web3 stack. It's modular. There are a variety of tools that you can use to build your Web3 application. I'm happy to explain what all of those tools are, but it's really about enabling this next generation of internet experiences.
Love it. Yeah, super interesting. So let's go back to 2017 when Horizen first started. What were some of the early challenges back then, and how did you and your team solve for those?
Yeah, there were a lot of challenges. Of course, though, that's what we were excited about, was solving these challenges. And right from the very beginning, we knew we were building Skyweaver and Sequence. We didn't call it Sequence back then, but we knew we were building this platform and developer tooling and infrastructure. What inspired us initially was to create content, in other words, a video game that anyone could enjoy, that our friends could enjoy. That, you didn't need to know anything about crypto or Web3. You could simply have fun and get going. And through that experience, you would learn at least a little bit about, decentralized ownership and Web3 and crypto. But we weren't trying, it wasn't about making it super obvious that Web3 crypto is the best. It was like, no, here's an amazing experience, enjoy it, and then learn what the amazing benefits of Web3 are. And so we wanted to create that amazing piece of content. And right from the get-go, we knew there are a ton of infrastructure problems we were going to have to solve. Immediately we realized onboarding sucked. When you think of, if you try to get a user to download a browser extension and remember some complex seed phrase, a term they've never heard before, you're going to lose everyone. It turns into a research project, and very few people stick around for that. There was also sorting out how do we handle gas fees and make it sensible for users, because when you first come into an experience and you want to either buy an item or trade an item or mint an item, someone has to pay gas. But if you're brand new to a Web3 application, you don't own ETH to pay gas on Ethereum, you don't own Matic to pay gas on Polygon, you don't own BNB to pay gas on the Binance Smart Chain. So how do we solve for that? Because it's massive friction, right? And then we also had to think about what network do we go on, because there's different trade-offs. for the networks, then we had to think about how do we make it easy for users to buy items in a game or application? And then how do we make it easy to display balances and the items that users have in the game or application? Like, how do we query the blockchain data and serve it to our users? We also had to think about tokens, like what kind of tokens are most sensible for games, for Web3 applications. A lot of people default to NFTs, non-fungible tokens, but we actually conceptualized SFTs, semi-fungible tokens, the ERC 1155 standard, which are much more suitable for most games and Web3 applications. We also had to figure out, like, how do we make it easy for users to trade in a game or application, a Web3 game or application? And also, like, how do you monetize that trading, that economic activity via something like an in-game marketplace? And then, of course, you got to think about how to design a proper economy. So a lot of things that we had to address. And I sort of mentioned like 7 key points there that we distilled it down. And then we worked to solve every single one of those. And I'm happy to explain that. But yeah, that's an answer to the challenges that we faced over the years.
Yeah, super interesting. So a little bit of a similar question, as you guys are working on those 7 challenges, what stood out as most surprising in this work of building Horizon, where kind of an initial thought would be like a lot has changed in kind of crypto blockchain world since 2017, right? So maybe even expanding the question beyond surprises too, like how have you and your team rolled with the punches over the last kind of almost 6 years now, right? Or you had mentioned, 5-year anniversary,
Yeah.
in a kind of a notoriously turbulent market to find the place that lets you make the biggest impact.
Well, I would say on a technical level, one of the things that surprised me the most was how difficult it was to query blockchain data and serve that to users in real time. Then another thing that has evolved a great deal is that, in 2017, 2018, there were a lot of ICOs, a lot of projects dropping tokens, most of which were not good businesses or companies, and most of which have disappeared. And there was, I think, the standard was to just release a token. But we actually decided very early on that we have a lot of work to do before we could have a token in our game Skyweaver or a token for our developer platform. Furthermore, with our game, we never did an NFT drop, a pre-sale of sorts. And we decided this because we weren't ready to lock ourselves into an economy design before first figuring out what is the actual game design in Skyweaver, and then what is the actual platform and tooling design and architecture for Sequence. Had we implemented a token at the very beginning, we would have locked ourselves into something that we did not understand nearly well enough to be doing. And I think over time, our approach has been recognized as a very sensible one, to be patient with the creation of a token. Because there's a good chance in the not too distant future, we'll have a token and we could have tokens for both products. But when we do it, it'll be because we're extremely confident in the fact that the token we layer into the ecosystem is truly providing value to the users, to the community, to our organization, and promoting the longevity of all of those things. So I'd say that that's been an interesting evolution to witness, whereas I think we were really contrarian earlier on, whereas now it's sort of, I think, perceived as the sensible approach to be patient with tokens or drops of that nature.
Yeah, that's super interesting. So from your vantage point, where is gaming going, and blockchain gaming specifically, with the unique unlocks enabled there? So say 3 to 5 years, just kind of anchoring around those numbers, what kind of changes can gamers expect and developers expect, and maybe also gaming companies expect over that time period?
I think 5 years from now, 80% of games being developed will leverage Web3 technologies and what I call superpowers in some way. I think major gaming studios, they're all looking at it. They're all, they all have plans for it. Startups, most of them are looking at it. the in-betweens, most of them are, if they're not already doing something, they're exploring it, they're pondering it. And so, yeah, I think in a few years, most projects will be building with Web3. And for players, I think this is incredibly exciting because it allows you to own the items. There's also this incredible concept of composability and interoperability. So being able to own a digital good in one environment that then enables experiences in a totally different virtual environment, or perhaps even a physical environment, right? Like this notion of token gated experiences where maybe you own, I'll just use like a popular game, like you own some item, some car, for example, from Grand Theft Auto. And then because you own that, you can then go to, I don't know, let's say like a Ferrari test drive or some special experience with Ferrari because you own like a Ferrari from Grand Theft Auto or Need for Speed or something like that.
Yeah.
And so I think there's all these different like landscapes to be explored. There's also the concepts of like lending, which are, more on the economic side of things. But I think the player experience is going to evolve a great deal with this sense of ownership and the feeling of ownership that players will have, right? Because like if you feel invested in an ecosystem and like you're a contributor to it and you're a part owner of it, there's a different sense of evangelism and passion for that. So I think that's really exciting because we'll see how users then evolve the gaming experiences they participate in. And then furthermore, there's also more freedom for players, right? Like let's say you're part of a game and you own a bunch of items, but you get tired of it. Well, you can simply sell those items, and like recoup some of your costs and then go use that money and do something different, whether it's in the digital world or in the physical world. And I think ultimately, so with games, for example, like the builders of games, something I think is really cool is that, right now, a lot of the focus is around on creating new content and selling things from a primary market to generate revenue. And I don't think that will disappear. Like new people love new content. They can consume so much. They can consume it faster than people can create it. I mean, AI could change that a bit. It actually could change that significantly. But right now there's still this need for more content. But I think what Web3 actually promotes is fostering more economic activity in the sense of trading amongst people within the ecosystem, which I think can promote healthier, more sustainable economies, whereby, if there's a lot of economic activity happening, the creator, the platform of it could just be taking a small fee for all of the transactions. Right. Meanwhile, the users are benefiting from that trade and not always needing to purchase something from the primary market. And I think that's really exciting design space that folks are exploring right now. And no one has fully cracked the code. Like if we look at Web3 games to date, I don't think there's a single like incredibly breakthrough game that has a sustainable economy. There are a number that I think are like slow growing and will hit their inflection point and are still iterating on their economies. Skyweaver is an example of that. A number of games building on Sequence are similar, I would say. But yeah, I think in these next few years, we're going to discover some of the coolest game designs and game economy models that will inform the applications being built after that and will fundamentally change the way online experiences operate and will furthermore like bleed even more into the physical world because of this notion of ownership, right? Like this notion of digital ownership is akin to how we value and experience things in the physical world. The clothes that I have on my body, I own them. I can do with them whatever I want. And whether I'm wearing them in my office at home or I go out to an event, it's still the same clothes and they operate in either environment. And similarly, we're going to start experiencing that with digital goods, and how we express ourselves in the digital environment is going to evolve a great deal. So I think it also affords us this exploration of identity expression and having multiple identities so that we can explore different facets of our personalities. And yeah, I think there's just like incredible space for exploration, and I believe people will find it very enriching. And it's up to all of us to co-create it, right? Like it's not any one entity that's dictating how this will look. And which is also really special about Web3 and permissionless systems is that anyone can contribute. It's open. And so I think we all have this opportunity, and hopefully we build it with really wonderful values in mind, like love and openness and play, and just things that really speak to the human spirit. So yeah, I think it's going to be an incredibly bright and wonderful future.
Yeah, I love that vision, truly. So you had mentioned this a little bit ago, but I'd love to kind of zoom in a little bit on that community who's building on Sequence. I guess I'm mainly curious, like, what have they been most excited about, and what are they looking forward to most as things continue to evolve?
Yeah, so at the moment, we have about 50 different projects that have either fully integrated Sequence or are in the process of integrating with Sequence. And then we have hundreds more companies that are sort of exploring it, many of whom will certainly begin using them at some point. And I think that obviously that number is just going to keep growing and growing. And these projects range from small Web3 startups to some of the biggest tech and gaming companies in the world. And most of the projects building with Sequence right now they're consumer oriented. So a lot of games, digital collectibles experiences, like NFT projects and things of that nature that could also tie into token gated experiences. We have marketplaces of various sorts. We also do have some like finance and like DeFi and even traditional finance projects building with Sequence, but most of it orients around that like consumer and fun and social experience. I think what all of our partners are really excited about is that we allow them to seamlessly onboard new users in a secure and intuitive manner that it makes it enjoyable. And at the same time, we allow them to augment their scalability through our relayer. So we actually improve the scalability of all the different blockchains. Sequence ensures that their app's always up and running through our node gateway, our node services. We have, different token and NFT APIs for indexing, so querying all the data and then serving that to the users in real time, minting capabilities. And then we have marketplace SDK, so projects can build their custom Web3 collectibles marketplace. And then we have the on-ramps built in, so you can go from fiat to crypto or fiat to collectibles. And we have SDKs for Unity, Unreal Engine, mobile, web. So it's really like they're excited about this complete stack where they can go to Sequence to deliver their users an amazing Web3 experience.
Love it. Super interesting. Okay, so hopping around a little bit, I'd love to learn more about your role, kind of beyond co-founder, but specifically the chief storyteller role at Horizen, where I guess my questions are twofold, where first question would be, what does that consisted of at Horizen? And then secondly, like, what's your unique approach to what I'm assuming is kind of a world building and lore creation role in, say, like Skyweaver, for example?
Mm-hmm. So my role involves, I lead the marketing and community teams. I'm also involved in business development, heavily involved in investor relations, and and operations, wearing multiple hats as a co-founder. And storytelling to me, I think some people, to just make a comparison, I think like chief marketing officer would be perhaps the closest comparison. However, marketing as a term is not as comprehensive based on, I think, how I operate and how I can provide value, because I think I see storytelling as an invitation. It's a welcoming on to the journey and bringing people into this Web3 ecosystem, helping make it understandable and enjoyable. And that's what the storytelling is really about, and this ranges from welcoming users into Skyweaver, welcoming builders to start building with Sequence so they can deliver their Web3 games and applications, and welcoming team members to join Horizon welcoming, media outlets, folks like WAGMI Ventures to want to speak with us, and just really inviting people into this story, this journey that we're co-creating together. So that's why I really like the notion of storytelling, and I think it sounds a bit unique in the market as well, which it's exciting because it prompts questions like yours, Tanner. And I think that's a really good thing because the curiosity really promotes discovery and evolution. And so, yeah, it's been a nice title so far. And I hope I answered your question there.
Definitely,
I forget if there was a second part.
No, yeah, that's perfect. So, Michael, you guys recently, I think in October, you guys wrapped up a $40 million Series A. Is that right?
Yeah.
And it looked like from some really awesome investors, including the folks at Ubisoft and a variety of other maybe more kind of crypto native firms too. So I'm curious, can you talk a little bit about what that experience was like for your team raising in the midst of this bear market? Maybe it honestly kind of a time of peak pessimism from at least the mainstream about blockchain and crypto projects.
Yeah. It was it was a fun experience. It was incredibly teaching. You're absolutely right that we raised in one of the most difficult times. Like we got our term sheet, and then I think it was like 3 days later, the crypto markets crashed, and there was like extreme pessimism. So the round became more dynamic than we anticipated. And we persevered though. It was a lot of work. Our whole team really deserves credit for this because, you don't raise money for a company unless the entire team is doing a great job, or at least hopefully that's how it works. Right. And that's how it is at Horizon. And, Peter, our CEO, Deborah, our CFO, and myself were primarily leading the fundraising efforts, and it was very consuming. Also really fun because you get to meet incredibly inspiring people and investors who are excited about your vision and excited about the future of Web3. And so meeting people who are inspired and then finding that synergy with the folks who you really should be working with is something super special, because when you bring on an investor to your organization, it is a marriage of some sort, right? You're probably going to be in it for at least 5 years, like maybe 20, or, depending on if you go public or how different things shake out. So we've always been over the years, like incredibly committed to working with the right people and not, it's like we're very selective, and we're fortunate that we get to be selective. And we really believe that we brought on our dream team of investors for this round, who are not only geniuses and visionaries in their domains, they're also incredibly kind and supportive people and organizations. And, that ranges from Brevin Howard, who led our Series A, Polygon. We have Coinbase as an investor, Bitcraft, one of the leading video game investors, Take-Two Interactive, who own Rockstar, like games like Grand Theft Auto and 2K and Zynga, CMT Digital, like a number of really wonderful people, in addition to some really influential angels like the CEO of Shopify and their head of product as well. So it was a very intense process raising in a difficult climate, but we really believe it's a testament to our vision, to what we're building, the team we've assembled, how we operate, and we're really committed to becoming the most positively impactful organization in Web3, or at least one of them, so that we can usher in this new dimension, as we call it, and make Web3 easy, fun, and powerful for everyone.
Very cool. Okay, so Michael, maybe two last questions here. First question is, do you have any general advice for founders building in the Web3 space right now, especially?
Build something that you really enjoy using and that solves a problem you face, because it's going to get difficult at some point. There will be challenges, and if you don't love the thing you're building, I think it's very difficult to stick through. Whereas if you're really passionate and it's solving a need you have, then you'll be extra incentivized and committed to making sure that it exists in the world. So there's that. And then also like really cherish and nurture your mental health, your well-being, your relationships with family and friends. Like make sure you're exercising, meditating, taking time for yourself, sleeping well. There will likely be times where you are stressed and perhaps you're not sleeping well because it's intense, but taking the time to check in and center, because over time, like, you can burn the midnight oil for a while, but you will eventually crash if you do it long enough. And so it's really important to realize that if you are building a company, it's going to be a multi-year journey. If it's a successful one, it's going to be a decade. It could even be like 5 decades. So just recognizing that you want to do it sustainably and really focus on the essential items. So there are a ton of good ideas out there, but you really want to focus on the amazing ideas. And if you can focus on the amazing ideas, then you can ignore a lot of the good ideas, which then reduces your focus to only the most impactful items. And then that's how you drive impact. And that's how you create something really special rather than just trying to get through a task list.
Yep. Love it. Okay. So Michael, what is your team working on right now? And what's the best way for people to follow along the journey?
So on the Skyweaver side, we are focused on making the game even more sticky, more engaging, more enriching for players, and scaling the user base there. And just making sure the game keeps getting better and better. And we keep supporting and growing our wonderful community who have been with us many of whom have been with us for 4 years. So super grateful to them. And then on the Sequence side, it's all about ecosystem growth. So it's about increasing marketing and business development so that we can welcome more and more amazing Web3 projects to deliver their experiences to the world, leveraging Sequence tools. And for anyone that wants to follow our journey or get involved, go to horizon.io. There you'll find links to Sequence, which is sequence.xyz, and Skyweaver, skyweaver.net. And that's the best place to follow along. You'll find the links to all the socials, etc.
Love it. Michael, thank you so much for the time. This was really, really interesting. And truly, I love the mental health emphasis too, as part of the advice, where it's not even just intrinsically a good idea, which it is, but just from a pragmatic perspective, like you want to be in this for the long term, and making sure that you're sustainable is a big piece of making the project sustainable. So I love that advice and really love this conversation, and hope we get to chat again soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tanner. And thanks everyone for listening.
All right. See you, Michael. Bye-bye.